Accidentally gave my number to a high schooler in college class, now I'm worried. There's this girl in my college biology class who seemed to think I was cool from day one. Today, we chatted in the library, and I ended up giving her my number with a casual, "Nice talking to you." During our talk, she mentioned she was a dual enrollment student, and I wasn't quite sure what that meant. When I looked it up later, I found out it refers to high school students taking college classes. Now I'm worried about what could happen with her counselors or parents, and I'm planning to apologize when I see her in class the day after tomorrow. To be honest, I thought our conversation was totally normal, and the only semi-flirty thing I did was share my number. It wasn't anything weird, so yeah, lesson learned. Always double-check before making moves.
Accidentally swapped phones after a gas station chicken wrap disaster. Now I'm stuck! So here's my ridiculous story. It all started with a questionable gas station chicken wrap that left me in desperate need of a bathroom. I rushed into a nearby store, did my business, and noticed someone's phone sitting on top of the toilet paper dispenser. Thinking I was doing a good deed, I took it over to the cashiers to return it. Fast forward to my walk home. When I went to pull up some music, my heart sank. I realized my phone was missing from my pocket. I started retracing my steps, and then it hit me. I had gotten a little high and accidentally left my own phone on that dispenser, mistaking it for the other one since I just got a new case. Now, I can't just stroll back in and say, "Oops, that's my phone," because they'd think I'm trying to steal someone else's. Ugh, what a mess. Can't even play Jetpack Joyride on my laptop. I feel like such an idiot. Bought a cleanser for my KP and discovered it's actually a lotion. Whoops! I've got KP, keratosis pilaris, on my arms, which makes them bumpy and a bit weird looking. Honestly, it's been a source of annoyance and embarrassment for me for years. Recently, I bought CeraVe Rough and Bumpy lotion, mistakenly thinking it was a cleanser. For the past 3 months, I was puzzled about why this cleanser didn't foam up and left my skin feeling moisturized, especially since it contains salicylic acid. Today, right after my shower, I finally read the label and realized it said lotion. I just stared at it for a moment, then burst out laughing. Here I was, sick with a mild fever and barely able to think, yet I managed to solve this little mystery. Oh, the lengths I will go to for a good laugh. But hey, on the bright side, my confused choice has been working pretty well for my KP. Just wanted to share this funny mix-up.
I accidentally walked into the girls' locker room at my sister's game, and it was awkward. So, I had a wild experience at my sister's basketball game. I'm 17, and didn't have wrestling practice that day, so my friends and I decided to chill and hit my wax pen a few times, which definitely left me pretty high. We made our way to the game, but by the time we got there, it was already over. My little brother ran into the locker room, and in my hazy state, I chased after him. I finally caught up, picked him up, and walked out. Suddenly, the principal of the school pulled me aside and asked, "Sir, how old are you?" I said, 17. Then he followed up with, "What school do you go to?" I replied with my school, and that's when the realization hit me. You know that was the girls' locker room, right? Talk about embarrassing. I'm 6'5" and 250 pounds, so I already look older. I'm just hoping I won't be known as the guy who wandered into the girls' locker room before even starting at that school.
I ignored my toilet rules during the cold, and now I'm in a plumbing nightmare. I usually stick to the rule of only flushing pee, poop, and toilet paper, but with the frigid weather, I didn't want to take my organic scraps outside. They were those thin Asian noodles, but they had clumped together. I figured the toilet could handle it since I've flushed bigger loads before. Big mistake! Now it's completely clogged, and I've been plunging for half an hour with no luck. My parents are coming over tomorrow, which only adds to my stress. If this isn't some form of self-sabotage, I don't know what is. I've already called my landlord and the city. Who knew that a toilet disaster would teach me what a real emergency is? Right now, I'm waiting on a plumber, and I've learned my lesson. No more organic waste in the toilet. Stick to pee, poop, and toilet paper, folks. I made an awkward joke in art class, and now I want to disappear forever. I take an art class with my sister, and one day, we were showing our teacher, who's in his 40s and married, a video of those whipped espresso drinks that got so popular back in 2020. He had never heard of them before and joked, "Oh, you basically just whip the piss out of it." Instantly, I had this weird mental image. I thought, man, I wish I could melt into a coffee cup and have someone whisk my brain to make it work better. But instead of keeping it to myself, I blurted out, "I wish someone would whip the piss out of me." The whole class went quiet, and I felt like I wanted to sink through the floor. Honestly, I think I have to quit the class, There's no way I can show my face there again. Oh, and just to add to the embarrassment, it was day 1 of my period, so yeah, perfect timing. I pocket a cash tip, then watch my manager toss it in the tip jar. What a day! I work as a server and we pool tips, which can be a bummer. But whenever someone gives me cash personally, I just pocket it. I know it's probably not the best thing to do, but I see some coworkers doing it too, so I don't feel too guilty. Today, some guests who know my parents came in for dinner, and as they were leaving, one of them handed me a $20 bill. Of course, I slipped it right into my pocket. I went about my day, but a few hours later, while serving another table, I noticed a bill on the floor near the bar. My manager picked it up and tossed it in the tip jar. I immediately checked my pocket, and sure enough, the $20 was gone. I realized I must have dropped it. I wanted to go over and say, "Hey, that's mine." But since we pool tips, I couldn't. I thought about snatching it back, but there are cameras everywhere, so I didn't want to risk it. Now I'm just bummed that someone else is going to get my tip.
I spilled my dating history to friends, and now I'm not sure if I've freaked them out. I know I probably shouldn't spill my guts like this, especially to my female friends, but I did. In 2024, I, 26M, got rejected 5 times when I asked women out. I'd never had a girlfriend before, and after last year's disaster, I ended up losing my V card to escorts. Honestly, 5 rejections in a year doesn't feel dramatic to me. Maybe if it happened in a month, but a whole year? My friend, however, acts like it's a crazy number. When I mentioned it, she said she'd never heard of anyone getting turned down so many times in 1 year. I don't get why she thinks it's such a big deal, but I totally get that I shouldn't share everything. The awkward part, which I didn't tell her, is that one woman I asked out actually reported me to HR. That's why I stopped asking around and went for an escort instead. 8 times ETA. HR said I did nothing wrong, they just have to do their due diligence. Asterisk. Now I feel bad that I might have overshared, and she's gone quiet.
Just wanted a sweet reward, but my chocolate bar had other plans. What a letdown. I've been craving sweets all week. If you menstruate, you know what I'm talking about. I finally caved and bought a candy bar, excitement bubbling as I slipped it into my pocket. After a grueling 3-hour meeting and an unexpected therapy session with a client, I was beyond tired. All I wanted was a little sweet reward for making it through the day. When I reached into my pocket, I totally forgot about the candy bar. I pulled it out, only to find it a melted glob, unrecognizable and completely sad. I had dreams of popping it in the freezer for a delightful dessert later, but now, that was just a lost fantasy. With tears in my eyes, I tossed it in the nearest trash bin, utterly devastated. I just had to share this minor tragedy with someone. This is my way of crying over my sweet loss, and I hope my fellow internet friends can relate. Oh, the added pain of trying to hit that character limit when all I want to do is mope about my melted chocolate.
Lost car keys turn into a mini treasure hunt thanks to an AirTag and a return trip. About 2 weeks ago, my wife misplaced her Honda keys, and we've been searching everywhere for them. The weird part? Her keys have an AirTag, and the last ping was from the parking lot of the local strip mall where we often shop. We figured it could have been in my van when the battery died, but today, the AirTag just pinged in Kentucky. The only explanation we can come up with is that my wife might have left her keys in a jacket she tried on but didn't buy. I ended up returning that jacket to Amazon at the UPS store, which clears up the last ping location. I'm not sure why it took so long for the AirTag to show up, but I'm hopeful we'll get her keys back soon. I could really use a break from lending her my car. Who knew returning a jacket could turn into a mini treasure hunt for the car keys? Lost, broke, and alone after a toxic relationship and a failed rebound. Help me out here. So here's the scoop. I was in a toxic relationship with my baby mama for 2.5 years, filled with yelling and not much intimacy. Things weren't great, and neither of us really wanted to stay together. After our split, I crashed on the couch for a bit, but then I ended up getting involved with a coworker. While my baby mama was dealing with a family loss, I wasn't there for her, as I was out with someone else. Fast forward 2 weeks, and I accidentally mentioned my coworker in conversation. Boom! She kicked me out. I was the one paying all the bills, and now I'm broke after every paycheck. Since our breakup, my coworker has lost interest in hooking up, and to top it off, my baby mama went back to her ex. Now, I'm living in government housing and feeling really lost without motivation. Honestly, I could use some advice or tips because I'm not sure where to go from here.
Saw a guy waving, thought it was me. Awkwardness ensued, and I'm never going back. Today, while wandering around the mall, I spotted a guy waving at me. Naturally, I flashed him a big smile and waved back enthusiastically. Then I realized he was actually trying to get the attention of someone behind me. Now I had a choice. I could drop my hand and play it cool, or just lean into the awkwardness. I went for the latter. I walked over to him, pretending to know him, and, surprisingly, he played along. For about 30 seconds, we had this awkward, silent exchange while I waited for his real friend to show up. Finally, when his friend arrived, I nervously chuckled and said, "Haha, anyway, see you around." Now, I don't think I can ever step foot in that mall again without cringing. That time, I challenged a guard goose and learned he's tougher than he looks. I'm visiting my cousin, and the neighbor's massive farm goose has taken a special interest in me. Auntie says he's a guard goose, just trying to protect his 3 wives from strangers. I thought it'd be funny to hiss back at him and clap my hands. Bad move. He immediately lowered his head and charged at me like a torpedo. Next thing you know, he's biting me and flapping his wings like crazy. My arms are now a patchwork of red and blue bruises, sporting tiny teeth and beak marks. Yes, geese have teeth. When he bites, he twists his head to inflict maximum damage. It hurts. I tried grabbing his neck to stop him, but he twisted away and chomped down on my finger instead, which is now colorful under the nail, while the other geese screamed in support of their champion. Auntie finally rescued me. As the guard goose returned to his wives, he let out a triumphant honk that sounded like a dinosaur roar. And despite everything, I still love geese. One of his wives is super cuddly and will sit in your lap if you sit on the ground. Just for the record, recommending "just kick it" is unhelpful and doesn't work. That time my son repeated George Takei's line in the car before preschool. Yikes! This memory just popped back into my head, even though it happened over 20 years ago. I was driving my son to preschool while jamming to Howard Stern, who was still the ultimate shock jock back then. That day, he had George Takei on, and let me tell you, George was a riot. He would go along with anything Howard asked. Then, in that iconic deep voice, George casually dropped the phrase, "Young wet bitches." I glanced back at my son, who was staring out the window, and I thought I got away with it. But a minute later, from the back seat, I hear him repeating, "Young wet bitches." Panic set in. We were almost at preschool. Should I ignore it, or say something that might make him repeat it? I decided to address it gently. Pam. "Hey buddy, you can't say that at school." He replied with a simple, "Okay." Fortunately, it didn't come back to haunt me. Now that he's older, my son loves to share this story with friends.